Because if you're worried about even making a mark in your artwork, are you really creating? Getting your artwork out into the world is more important than it being perfect. It's better than being trapped in your head for the rest of your life and never being expressed. It is the imperfections, the risks that really will bring you the rewards, and these will really bring your artwork to life. Hello and welcome back to Rebekah Victoria Studios. I am Rebekah and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. Today I have behind me a kind of little compilation I threw together. It is a graveyard of paintings and artworks that did not make it through fruition. They were paintings that I was super excited about when I started them, but then when I started going, I became really stuck. And the reason that I was really stuck was because I was so focused on getting them perfect. This ended up in them becoming part of my graveyard. So today I want to talk about something that I think holds many of us back in art, and that is perfectionism. You know that feeling when you're like hesitating to even put a brush mark on because you're so nervous of how it's going to look? And you're so worried about it if it's in the right place, or maybe it's where you're stuck in a place where you're overthinking every single tiny detail, and that ultimately means that you don't make any mark in the end. And you're so concentrated on getting every single little thing right that we end up not even making anything. Have you ever experienced this? Because I know that I have. Well, if you struggled with perfectionism, then you are in the exact right place. And if you're worried about the pressures of making the perfect art, this video is for you. In today's video, we're going to discuss about how perfectionism can actually limit you and hold you back from progression, and how you need to learn to embrace imperfection, and the way that this can push your artwork forwards in beautiful, new, exciting, inspired new ways, and ways that can just completely free our artistic expression. So let's explore how the need for letting go of perfectionism and the beauty in embracing the process, and how this can be the best thing for your art ultimately. Because at the end of the day, all your art really is about storytelling. You want your artwork to tell a story of the journey that you've been on and the places that you've been. And to do so, we don't want our artwork to be perfect, because that's not what our life is, right? So really, the imperfect is a much more authentic expression of ourselves. The first thing that I want to chat about is how the fear of failure ultimately stifles and constricts our creativity. So perfectionism leads to us being scared of making any mistakes, and sometimes that can lead us to preventing from experimenting or taking any risks or doing anything that might be inspired. This fear can stifle our creativity and keep us in a place where we are not progressing, where we might feel stuck and we might feel this really stagnant energy in our art. And this really has the potential to limit our growth. It stops us from moving forwards. Because if you're worried about even making a mark in your artwork, are you really creating? This was a big problem in my art. When I was creating these artworks, I was so focused on the minute details that it led me to not even getting color on this one. I didn't even try because I was so worried about how it was going to look. I left it in the open sketch phase. I didn't even progress past that. What a shame, because it could have been such a beautiful artwork. But ultimately now it is just sitting in the back of my studio collecting dust. So when we're so focused on perfectionism, we're not even letting ourselves go into an open flow state. We're not allowing ourselves to explore, to make mistakes, or to even express ourselves at all. We're not even focusing on the real artistic process itself. We're not getting into explore mode. We're not using trial and error. We're not trying different things or trusting our instincts at all. The act of creating and learning and trying new things is so much more important. The journey is so much more important than the final artwork. Art is a journey ultimately, and if we're focusing on perfection, we're not really evolving in this journey very far. It's taking away from the joy of creating. So you need to teach yourself to embrace imperfection as uniqueness, as you coming out into this artwork, as your beautiful personal story being shared to the world through this creative medium. These imperfections and these mistakes, they make this piece of artwork interesting. They make it you. Many great works of art are actually celebrated for these mistakes and these flaws and these imperfect things. They add depth, they add character, and they add story to the artwork. And many people actually remember the story rather than something being perfect. If you walk down the street and ask a person, hey, can you tell me about Vincent van Gogh? I highly doubt that any single person would ever say, you know what, I thought this piece of artwork was so perfect. They would talk about the story behind the artwork, the fact that he cut his ear off, that he was a friend of Gauguin, that he lived in France, and that he had struggles with depression. They would not talk about how perfect his paintings were. They would say how expressive they are, how creative they are, and they would say how his life impacted his artwork in such a profound way that the story was so connected and intertwined in the artwork. I don't think one person would say it was perfect in the day that he created it, and not today either. If we are so focused on perfectionism, it can actually lead us into creative block, which I experienced in all of these artworks. I did not feel creatively interested in pursuing them anymore. I felt so blocked and I felt so boxed in that it ultimately meant that I did nothing with them. There ended up being a huge paralysis in this overthinking and this perfectionism. It stopped me dead in my tracks, and I hesitated from even doing anything. The desire to get everything just right halted and delayed my progress. It stopped me. Just think, if you're so paralyzed in the outcome that you never even started, how sad this is. How sad it is that you might not share your gifts, your talents, your artwork, your creative idea with the world because you were so worried about it being perfect the first time or being perfect at all. This would mean that your beautiful creative ideas stayed in your head. They weren't shared, they weren't developed, and your view of the world was not shared with anyone. How sad is that? What may seem imperfect to you might actually be so beautiful to another person. They might be an artist who hasn't even started yet, who has a little interest in art and maybe wants to start, but they're not sure how to do so. And they might look at your work and think, oh my God, that work is so perfect. I will never be able to create work like that. And when you're looking at it, you're pointing out all the little flaws that you see and how imperfect it is. And you're pulling it apart. But to them, they see the flip side of the coin. They see how interesting it is. They see how nuanced it is. They see your passion and your story being presented through this whole artwork. And you've missed this because all you've been focused on is the perfection of it. This little anecdote I just told you highlights that art is ultimately subjective. Everybody sees it in their own lens and in their own viewpoint. They only see what is true to their story. And there is so much beauty in this subjectivity and this difference. We need to lean on that and realize that where we are today, if we look back in 1 year's time, we will see the story played out so differently than when we're looking today. So by striving to attain this huge standard of perfection, it might ultimately be our downfall. And it can detract from the authenticity of the work and the heart in the work. It takes away from the soul of the artwork and your story that you've poured into this soul. You might be also missing these beautiful evolutions and these beautiful things that you can incorporate into your art because you haven't allowed yourself to be in process mode and play and find these mistakes and learn from them and maybe use them in new, different ways. You might be trapped because you're not allowing yourself to get into this creative flow. So I want you to stay open to possibilities, stay open to the beauty that surrounds you, and don't force yourself into a small box of perfectionism because that's ultimately what it is. It's a small box. You need to be able to break free of this box and be a part of the world and allow the world to see into your world. I've said this before, done is better than perfect. And getting your artwork out into the world is more important than it being perfect. Getting your idea onto the canvas, onto the paper, or into the clay, even, or whatever, into the film, is so much more important than you worried about it being perfect. It's better than being trapped in your head for the rest of your life and never being expressed. The perfectionism can really make the whole concept of being an artist and doing artwork seem daunting. But every mark you make and every step you step forwards is a part of your journey and a part of your artist career, and it becomes a part of your art. It is the imperfections, the risks, that really will bring you the rewards, and these will really bring your artwork to life. And they will give your artwork passion and soul and love that you pour into it. So the next time you're getting the pressure to do things just right, just remind yourself of the story that you're putting into your artwork by not subscribing and not falling into that trap. Think of the growth that will come from you embracing the creative process and not chasing the perfectionism. I hope that this video has inspired you today and encouraged you to let go of this trap of perfectionism and to help you to keep creating your own unique, authentic art. It is something that needs to be shared with the world. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend if you think it would resonate with them too. I would also love to hear about your experiences with perfectionism below in the comments, and I would love to chat with you and maybe even see some of your artwork. So if you could leave in your comment where I could take a look at that as well, I would love it, and I'm sure other people watching this video would really love seeing that too. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, today is a great day to go and create some art, and create this art with passion and inject it with life and not end up with a graveyard of artwork like I have. Thank you so much for being here. Love you so much. Bye.